Hello, this is Simon Brew. I'm the editor of Film Stories magazine, and a very warm welcome to the Film Stories podcast.
Come with me.
And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
And movies that had stories.
The story just sucks them in.
This is just the beginning.
Stories. We would be honored if you would join us.
Hello, and a very warm welcome to Film Stories with Simon Brew. I am Simon Brew. As always, there's absolutely everything you need to know about me. The aim of the podcast, though, well, it's given away in the title. I'm here to talk of the stories of films, and I tend to talk about production stories, marketing stories, release stories, production stories, all those ingredients, really, that go towards making the films that we know and sometimes love. Just that, the films that we know and sometimes love. Now, what you've happened upon here is one of my occasional special episodes of Film Stories where I bring in filmmakers to talk about either their body of work or their latest release, in this case, a little bit of both. That the primary focus of this episode is the 2023 horror film Doctor Jekyll, the film that's relaunching Hammer Studios here in the UK. It's written by Dan Kelly Mahern and stars Eddie Izzard and Scott Chambers in the lead roles, and is directed by Joe Stephenson. And I'm delighted for this podcast episode to be joined by Joe Stephenson and Scott Chambers for a conversation about the movie. But not just that, because there are a few other things that we get into as well. That we talk about Joe Stephenson's debut feature film Chicken, and also his Ian McKellen documentary that he made a few years after that. We also get into the dual identity of Scott Chambers, for not only is he an actor, he's also a producer himself of over 100 feature films under the name Scott Jeffrey, and films such as Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, Dinosaur Hotel 2 is a particular standout, a bunch of erotic thrillers, all sorts of creature features. So we're going to briefly touch on that as well. Now, in the film, Scott Chambers plays the role of Rob. So the word Rob is mentioned at some point. That is the context for this. Eddie Izzard takes the dual lead role of Dr. Nina Jekyll and Rachel Hyde. And also in the cast are Lindsay Duncan, Robin Cara, Jonathan Hyde, Simon Callow, Morgan Watkins, also in the ensemble. This conversation took place in a very, very swanky London hotel just after the film had its West End premiere as part of the London Film Festival. Now, I'm not used to going into swanky hotels, and so what you get here is, at one point, I think you'll get a little bit of an interruption where someone brings in a bit of coffee, but I'm never going to object to people bringing in a little bit of coffee. Other than that, what you hear is pretty much how the conversation panned out, and I was really pleased to get these two on. They give a very open and candid assessment of independent filmmaking in the UK, and also just how tricky it was to get this low budget film to the point of having a major West End premiere. I'm going to set it's enough preamble, isn't it? I'm going to set all this up with a clip from the trailer of the film. You're going to go straight after that into my conversation in a posh London hotel room with Scott and with Joe. But first, clip from that trailer.
2 steps ahead. That is the secret.
Nina Jekyll is excellence incarnate. She demands the same from others.
What we're looking for is someone who could help about the house. You like my chessboard? Do you play?
Oh, sorry, that's at me. There are cameras in almost every room.
Nina has been resistant to coexisting with staff until you.
I hear you're working for Nina Jekyll. We're all alone up there.
I have a daughter, and to see her, I need this job.
You forgot Nina's meds.
Ari is lucky to have such a determined father. Maybe I am the making of you.
So I am joined by Joe Stephenson, the director.
Hi.
And Scott Chambers, which is one of your names, which we will come to shortly, the co-star of Dr. Jekyll.
Hello.
Hello. I mean, first of all, you both well? Are you,
Yeah,
you good?
yeah, a little time.
I'm not surprised. I've been following, Joe, your social media account,
Right.
which makes writing questions for this really, really easy.
Really? Does it? Okay, that's interesting.
So there was a post you put up just before. No, I haven't gone into the burner account. Don't worry. There was a post you put up the night before we're recording now.
Yeah.
Where you talk about you've made a sub £1 million a budget film in the UK, and here you are at a West End premiere. And again, this is audio, so just to paint a picture, this was above the posh Odeon on Leicester Square. Big, huge poster for your film and a West End premiere. I mean, just before we get into the nuts and bolts, can you just try and capture what that's like?
It's still, I mean, it was literally last night, so I don't really know that I fully processed it myself. I think that, I mean, for me, it's the sort of thing that you always want, obviously. It's sort of, you kind of enter the industry and you want to be able to go like, yeah, I'm going to direct a film that's going to premiere at the Odeon Leicester Square, and it's going to have the posters and the barriers and the everything. And you always want that to be a target. And I guess when you make a film on the budget that we had, you don't think it's got that film. You think that that's a stepping stone to it. And so then for this film to have had that, it was surreal. It was just a very surreal kind of thing of like, oh, hang on, like there's all this going on and there's people coming down for it, and there's like it's 780 screen cinema. And I said at the intro for the film, I was like, that last film I watched here was Oppenheimer, which had 80 times our budget. And it's just very surreal, very, very strange, and lovely, absolutely, completely lovely.
It's also the thing I wonder, just from an indie filmmaker's point of view as well. I talked to loads of indie filmmakers, but getting 800 people in one room just to watch a film, I mean, you generally have to be Oppenheimer level to be able to attract that in. So did you sit in the room as people were watching your film?
Yes, there's I've been to a premiere there once before, and I went because I made a film on Ian McKellen before, and Ian very kindly invited me to a premiere there, and it was like the last X-Men film that he did, and I kind of like, it was always friends and things, and so it wasn't a surprise necessarily. But then what was a surprise was that Bryan Singer wasn't there. And so there was a seat next to Ian, and it was the central seat of the royal box of the Odeon Leicester Square.
And you were sat there.
And I was sat there next to Ian on one side and Patrick Stewart on the other side.
Bit weird.
Watching X-Men. And I was like, this is very strange. And obviously the next time I'm sat in it actually as the director of the film, not just in place of the director of the film. And it's for my film. And that's just incredibly, it's just incredible. It's incredible. And all those people, you know, that you do it for the audience, and this particular movie, I very much wanted to make it an entertainment movie, a movie that is for an audience to watch together in a dark room and kind of react together. And so when you get that satisfaction of an audience all gasping at the same time and all laughing at the same time, it's incredible, especially when there's 800 people. It's great.
Have you had that as an actor before? 800 people trained on a big screen with you on it?
No.
We had screens for Chicken that were big. There was like
I'm going to come to Chicken.
we did, but last night was something else and incredibly special. And it's a once in a lifetime thing, I think, and just amazing. I'm very grateful.
Hopefully not once.
Well,
I'm not aiming for
Galaxy 5 next, and it'll just be an anticlimax.
No, but you know what I mean. It's like, it's something that, like, as an actor, it's just you're very lucky to experience that.
Yeah.
And I don't think anything compares to last night that I've ever experienced. Yeah.
That's incredible. I mean, can you take us back to your story then, the pair of you coming together? Because as I've got it, you had a working relationship that went years before Chicken, I think.
Yeah, so we were friends, and so we basically.
Are you still?
I was.
Yeah, he's my best friend.
So we basically we were friends. I was doing trying to get going. I think had I done the Sky Arts thing? I don't know if I had.
Yeah. In Love with Shakespeare.
Yeah, I did that stuff. And then, but I was wanting to do my first film and trying to find a way. I couldn't get representation, so I didn't have an agent, and so we were basically trying to find our own way to do something. And then Scott then got a role in Chicken on stage, and so obviously as his friend, I was there on opening night, went to see it, and we talked about the role as he was like working on it. And
he was in a way like co-directing the director, because he would help me. I would be going over my lines with him. He's someone that I've always trusted with everything. Like, I can make a bit of a tip of myself in front of Joe, and I feel comfortable. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some directors, you're like, oh, I don't want to do that because they'll just judge me. And with Joe, I'll just do anything. And that's why in the prep for the play, he was like there for me and supported me and was like, try this, try that. And then I feel like you naturally became Richard with me. Like you understood the character Richard in Chicken.
Yeah, and it was that. Yeah, so obviously then when we saw the play, it was like, okay, this is. I felt emotionally involved already because I'd been there, part of, in the background, and I just felt like, okay, well, this is just something we can absolutely do on a budget level, low budget level, and and so then we just did that, and then it's just been continuously working. Whenever I'm doing something, I'm looking to see if there's anything there that Scott could do, and
Because you make the point about it's a safe space to make a tip of yourself, which sounds like a very minor point, but actually I think that's
it's
quite
so important. Do you know, like there's some projects where either you feel like a puppet, they don't really care about the acting, or it's just like, I don't know, there's some things where it can feel very like walled up. It's like you're the actor, you don't talk to them, you don't hierarchies, all this. With Joe, he hugs every single person on that set,
but not in a weird way.
No, but he's like so approachable to anyone. Anyone can go up to him. The runners can go up to him. Anyone. There's no hierarchy on Joe's set. It's a safe space for everyone to do well, and that's why I love working with Joe, because it's like there's no nerves for me. Whereas with everyone else, there's nerves. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like he just creates a space for everyone to be approachable, to just do their best and excel, and it's just the best. Yeah.
So, I mean, by the sounds of it, you're an actor's director.
He's both. It's weird. No, he really is both.
Go get your coffee as well.
Thank you.
Let's interrupt this recording to note that the elixir of life has arrived.
My sugar syrup.
The potion. No, he's both though. Honestly, like.
Is that your happy place when you're directing? I mean, I talk to directors, and some of them love the prep, some of them love the shoot, some of them love the edit. No one loves all three parts.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I feel most myself on a film set. I do. I absolutely love the job. I love I love being there and seeing everybody every day. I love the environment. I think, but I do love the prep, and I do love the editing. I mean, I've edited, my films as well.
Yes,
because it feels like another part of directing. In that and it's part of the way I direct anyway, is that I'm editing in my head as I'm shooting.
Yeah.
So I feel very much like I've always brought in somebody to help me, because you get to a point where you can't see through it.
Yeah.
And you need another pair of eyes and that skill. No, it's all part of the same thing, and I love all of it. But yes, no, I'd say definitely the set is my happy place. Yeah, I'd say that.
Just on the edit point, even when you're doing documentaries such as McKellen playing the part, that's still the same process in your head. You feel as he's answering the questions, roughly that's it.
Yeah,
that's out. That's
I mean, you do. You when you're talking to somebody and you hear that sort of. You hear the things. I mean, that was very difficult because there was so much, and Ian's so good at speaking that and telling stories, that there are so many wonderful outtakes of that. I mean, I had hours and hours and hours and hours of footage of him. So that was very different. That was kind of like having to, but that directing in a documentary sense is the edit is the directing.
Yeah.
So that's like, you have to do that as director. I don't understand how you can direct a documentary and then not edit it. That seems that's mad.
It's incredible. He let me come into the edit at some point to see some bits and stuff, like how it was coming together. And it was before he actually filmed some like reenaction kind of moments that actually I was lucky to be in as well.
I recall this.
But I went to the edit before any of that, and I was just watching it, and I was like, it made me have such an appreciation for documentaries and what goes into that, because the amount of content you had, you could have told so many different films out of that. You could have really told like a 10-part TV show out of it. And there's so much that goes into that, and your mind, I don't know. It's
very different. But what I like about the set so much is that it's not an isolated experience. It's a shared experience. And that's what's so nice. And I'm a people person. I like being around people and sharing experiences with people. I don't, and editing isn't that. Editing is like you're locked in. It's obsessive. It's you go hours and hours. You can go into the night, and it's not.
You just forget to have a life, don't you? You cut it off, and you're like. Because it's so addictive as well. You're so addicted to editing, and it's like, and it's like, what's the time? Oh my god, it's 4 a.m. Fuck, it's sleep time.
Yeah, it really is like that. So I like the satisfaction you get from editing and seeing it come together, but I don't like the isolation.
Yeah,
which is why I'd make a very bad writer as well. I like being around people.
But then you're all really good with like treatment. I feel like in treatment stage, like your ideas. Like so much of all of your projects are you, like the treatment stages. When you just said about the writing,
you're so involved
in all of the ideas and stuff on you.
Yeah, I couldn't write that.
I feel like you could, but well.
It's probably worth introducing to the conversation at this point, Scott, that point I made about your two people. So you see things through more than one lens.
Who do you want to talk to?
Well, I mean, you're also the producer of what, Jurassic Island, and
oh my god,
and four or five erotic films. I was looking through your website. There's 20 creature features. There's action films. There's soft. There's fruity stuff. But it's just like, and I just kind of wonder. The fact that you've found your way through, and you two have been that close, that kind of opened your eyes to just filmmaking and your producing work as well.
Some of the very first film I produced, I went to Joe for advice. Literally, I went to you, me and Becky, I produced my first film with, and we sat down with Joe, and I was like, okay, these are our ideas. Do you think it would sell? Like, what could we do? And how do we spend the money and stuff? Joe was completely a mentor at the beginning, especially. And and also, like, I know this is going to sound cheesy, but like, being friends with someone that truly is self-taught, has no connection to the industry, it makes it, to me, who's in the exact same space, it makes you kind of like, you go, I can do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I really can. And you've always encouraged me to just pick up a camera and just make something. And I've always had like anxiety about my acting and stuff. And it's been such a great thing for me to do, and just felt like fulfillment in a different direction when things aren't as easy acting. So, but yeah, he's been my little mentor.
Oh, that's great. Joe, I'm going to throw back something you said around the time of Chicken, just in terms of, I love quoting people's quotes back at them.
That's dangerous.
It was interesting because, I mean, one of the things we've tried to do with film stories is just kind of show some kind of reachability of path to making, that's a phrase, isn't it? To making independent films. And I remember you said in an interview once in the past, like, don't have a plan B, because you'll just kind of go to your plan B. But you said of Chicken, I mean, you kind of went against the idyllic fairy tale story of trying to get the funding for that. And you said, I'd love to tell you, we've had wonderful support from this place and that place, and the UK film industry is an incredible place for new talent, but we haven't, and it hasn't been for me thus far. And you talked about, I mean, almost the minor miracle of finding the funding and then getting the distribution of that film. What's the aftermath when that's a success, when you come up with this particular project? You know, when you come up with Doctor Jekyll and the budget is relatively modest, are the doors even slightly more ajar when you've had something before?
I would say I stand by what I'm after. I mean, look, I stand by what I said. My experience has been with the industry, and it's a very close shop to a very particular type of people, I suppose. And I suppose I kind of sort of maybe fit into it. I don't necessarily fit into that group. I don't play the game very well. Perhaps that's it. But I don't want to not be true to myself. And so I guess that really I kind of rejected that part of it, because I had some bad experiences going for funding at the places you'd expect us to go for funding to. And it's really turned me off from that world of it. While obviously, we had the premiere last night in Leicester Square Odeon at the same time that LFF is on.
Yeah.
And there's something kind of nice about that for me. It's kind of like, I've never had anything in LFF. I've not got that sensibility, and maybe it's just the quality of the film. Hey, I don't know. I'll put my hands up. I'm not saying I'm something wonderful, but at the same time, that I feel like I've seen films of the same standard. I've seen, I just don't seem to be ticking their boxes at the moment. Perhaps I don't know, but whatever it is, I won't stop making films, because I that's what I wanted to do since I was 5. Yeah. And so you just have to find those people who do support you and hold on to them. And I've found since Chicken, it's been slow. Chicken made nobody any money, and that in this industry, that is really what gets you your next job. It doesn't really matter whether or not it's critically acclaimed. It doesn't matter whether it's taught on A level or whether, which we had these wonderful things. Yeah, which was wonderful with Chicken. And we got great support from people like Commode and everything. Yeah. Lots of things that movies don't get. And yet it made nobody any money. And so the reality is that then when you don't make anybody any money, nobody's coming to you with their money. Because they're like, well, you're going to lose us the money. You might make something really nice, but hey, are you going to give us the money back? And so you need to make people money. And then my documentary on McKellen, it was messed up in the distribution. It got into South by Southwest, and then the sales agent turned it down. So, you know what I mean? And I'm like,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Joke.
Yeah. And so which, you know, and then they released it, the distributor released it, I probably shouldn't say, but the distributor released it in the US, and managed to get 0 reviews. And you know, it was really
quite difficult to do.
Yeah. So yeah,
especially Ian McKellen.
Yeah. So you know, my experience of the nuts and bolts of the UK of the industry, has been that it's really actually sort of set me back. Essentially, I felt quite sort of pushed back.
Yeah.
And you know, it's not true for everybody. There are people who have got wonderful experiences with people, and they're embraced. But at the same time, I'm not going to let the industry tell me that I can't make movies. And so I will keep on doing them as much as I can.
So does that approach change the kind of film you're looking to make? Do you alter? Because I mean, a Jekyll and Hyde story, which ostensibly we're here to discuss, it instantly has some degree of hook, for instance, whereas you approach someone with Chicken.
Yeah. No, yeah.
And the doors slammed in your face more often than not, I'd imagine. But does that change? I mean, did that inform the choice, or was this just organic? This was the story you wanted?
I think maybe deciding to doing a McKellen
film at one point. I read some.
Yeah, script again. No funding from industry, so like we got a wonderful cast attached. I mean, including people like Ian, and you know, it's still no money there. This is what I mean. So I've kind of tried to be sensible and play the game as much as I can. But ultimately, you end up just going, you know what? The best thing to do is to go, look, what can I make? What is within reach? And go, okay, I think I know a couple of people who might put some money into something like this. But also, as well as director anyway, I've always wanted to do something different every time. Yeah. So it's about picking what that difference is and what it is. I want to play in genre, which I did here. That was something I wanted to do. So there's an element of planning your career. There's an element of thinking about, okay, what's going to help me raise the money. Yeah. But first and foremost, it's about just working with people that you like working with, and having some sort of sense of where you want to go.
Can you set the scene for this film there? I mean, what was it? Just 2 or 3 people at first, just trying to get it going? Did it come from you? Were the 2 of you having a conversation about wanting to do a Jekyll and Hyde story?
So, funnily enough, no, it was I was looking for a writer, a sort of a new writer, and a friend of mine introduced me to Dan, who wrote this. Yeah. So we then started during COVID, just having conversations. It was like a good time for development because. Yes. Really the only thing that could happen. So we would have phone calls and we'd talk about concepts and different ideas. And I knew that I wanted to do something with Scott. Yeah. And I knew that I wanted to do something with pair Scott with a name and make it very much a double-hander. And we were kind of talking about different ideas. And then one of the concepts that Dan presented was this mad doctor kind of story. Yeah. And I was like, well, why are we not just doing the original Mad Doctor? Let's really do, I'll say original. I'm sure there's others, but but one of the originals, it felt like, well, why are we not just doing Dr. Jekyll then? Let's just do that. And then from there, it's like, let's go back to the material, let's look at it, let's develop this as Dr. Jekyll. And that's where it started. And so then my walks that I had would be on the phone to the writer. Yeah. And he was turning in drafts, and we were getting there. It was really good, and so it was always going to be Scott versus a Jekyll, and then it was
a bit Batman versus Superman. Yeah. You could make a cheap version of that. Actually.
Honestly, 20 grand, I'll sort it out.
Love it. What the next one? So, how early were you in the conversation? When was this presented to you?
Yeah, quite early. Even hearing it right now is actually really weird because it's like I said it earlier in an interview, but it's like So I was like, I remember walking my dogs on a field in COVID, and like where you couldn't do anything, and he was just telling me about it and saying earlier he's saying it made it for me sort of thing. And I was just like, it's just so nice. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like he could have got anyone, right? Like boys of my casting, there's like your 5 go-tos that get every bloody role. And then you've got the ones a little bit below that, got the Netflix shows, and you've got no ones like me. And it's like, you could have got anyone, and it's just so nice. Like, just hearing all this, it's just so sweet, because he doesn't need to do this, and this is truly a good person sat here. Because, it's just amazing. But I got the call on a field, walk my dog, and I never completely believe stuff just because, not with Joe, but like, there was another project that someone said that I was going to get after Chicken, and then they ditched me for a name, and that actually never ended up happening, but it's just that thing, do you know what I mean?
Happens
And
a lot, doesn't it?
yeah, but yeah, I heard about it on the field. Look at my dogs.
So if Ryan Gosling had rang up said he'd take the role, would you have just dropped him on the start?
I'd be like, well, I'd be like, let's write a role. Let's write a role for Ryan. Yeah, absolutely.
It's not, we should state as well, this is the co-lead role as well. The film doesn't work if you don't work.
Yeah, there was a lot of pressure with
From
that.
start, middle and end, I mean, going as light as possible on it.
Yeah, with my character work, it was like, because if you look at this and you think about this type of character, and I always try and think, like, what are other actors not going to do? So when I audition for stuff, I always try and think, how do I stand out? You're going to see about 100 tapes or more or blah, 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 blah. How do I stand out? And I thought the same with this. And it was like, what can I do? What would other people not do? What is also likable? You've got to spend all this time with me. And if you think about your stereotype or your cliche for this role, I'm not that. And also, I don't know if that's that likable for this period of time. And then I looked at stuff like Euphoria, Zendaya in Euphoria. I think she did such a great role. And obviously I haven't got heroin addiction in this film, but that is a massive part of his backstory. And I've never even done a drug. So, you know, I had to really get my head in that. And I loved what she did in that because I truly think it wasn't a stereotype. I felt like it was a real girl, a real grounded, normal girl who'd fallen in this situation. And that's what I wanted Rob to be, this anyone, you know Rob, you've met Rob, and it's like he fell in this situation. And my big thing was, don't judge a book by its cover. Like, he might seem like this like down and out loser, but he's not. He's got this hope, this determination, but obviously that goes against him because he's so desperate that he will do anything. And that's the whole thing. Be 2 steps ahead. It's like, because as an audience, like, that's the whole quote of the movie, be 2 steps ahead, because with the audience you can maybe try and get ahead of Rob, but Rob is going to have this like glaze over him because he wants, so he just wants he wants his daughter back, and he's got these stakes, and this glaze will come down. So
you've also got that interview scene right near the start. I love the interview scene. I want to hear about the shooting it, because you're using their humour to disarm us quite a lot as well, and using humour so that we underestimate who we're kind of looking at. I'm genuinely interested in the putting together of that scene, but I'm also interested that you've got a lot of sequences in enclosed spaces with 2 or 3 people in a room, and just it sounds like the dimmest question in the world. How do you direct that? How do you make that work in the way that you did?
I'm constantly wanting to. So, I mean, when you have a limited amount of rooms and you've got an interior film, the biggest thing is trying to make sure that it never feels like it's repeating itself. In terms of, like, if we're shooting in a room more than once, which we did obviously a few times in this film, you want to shoot it a different way. You're always looking for different ways to open up the space, to change the way an audience is interacting with the space and the characters interacting with the space. So that's a big thing. And so when you're blocking the scene and you're looking at it, you're going, you want to be motivated by the characters, and since the characters are on a journey, every scene should be different, should have different motivations, should be coming from a different place. And so you want to, if you're going with the characters and that is your focus, then that will inform your decisions in directing. And so when you're in a space, you're driven by the character, and because the character's in a different space, it should feel different. Does that make sense? I don't know if that really answers.
Surgical then? This is, and this might be my pretentious question. I don't know, but how surgical are you on the power dynamics within each scene, and how that changes how you shoot them?
I like allowing. We'll always do a bit of a sort of run through of where we feel we are, and then we'll always do a couple of takes to kind of warm up. It's always the case. We want to warm up, and it's nice to get that on camera, because sometimes there's some stuff that just naturally happens that once you start thinking about it too much, you lose. So the instinctual stuff.
The rehearsal,
Right, So it's nice to do that, because there is some magic that happens when things are fresh. But then it's then we have an opportunity, hopefully, if we've managed the day correctly, to play with those dynamics and kind of go, hang on, well, what if he's reading that in that line? And what if she's saying it this? What if she emphasizes this in a way that makes him feel this way, or that he says this, which kind of triggers this? You get to play and massage the scene, I guess, and play with those dynamics. So you maybe give yourself a little bit of choice in the edit. You have, a lot of the time I'll know on the floor that this is the one that I'm playing with, and this is what I like. and then you just pull at the strings. Essentially, you just keep pulling at pieces and just push it really far, and then okay, that's too far. We're going back down again. Let's bring it back.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of that goes.
But that goes back to a degree to the answer you gave before about you're almost seeing the edit as you're shooting it.
Definitely.
You've got that level of art. I think it was Penny Marshall who's made some terrific films. It's always said that she found the film in the edit as if that was a criticism.
Right.
You know, 'cause she found the film but didn't necessarily see it all there. But you're in a position where you sort of know by the sound.
Yes, I'm definitely shooting to the edit, which it doesn't when I'm shooting for other people. Like if I do a TV job or something.
That's amazing for budget. You have to.
Well, that's it. I think it's learnt skill from working on the budget. It's working.
You can't mess about, waste time.
On Chicken, I couldn't shoot extra stuff. Like it was like you get what you get what you have.
It was like 1 or 2 takes when we had no time.
So, and to do that, you must have the cut in your head. You just know. I'm watching a take and I'm going, it's okay. I've got that line in the other take, and I've got that line in that take, and I'm kind of okay. I've got it. You know, I haven't got time to get it all in one take. No, I've got this there and this there.
But what a skill to have when you do a multi-million-pound film. Do you know what I mean? It's going to be like
hopefully
fucking easy. Like, no, but do you know what I mean? Like, you're learning the hard way as well. Like, because it's all self-taught.
Well, it sounds like you've edited a film where you've had no choices in the edit. You've edited a film where you had way too many choices in the edit. Was this some kind of like middle ground?
Yeah,
like a bit more.
This was a little bit more middle ground. It was, but then this project. It was about tone. That was the hardest thing in the edit with this one. The tone is a really interesting one, and it's like going, okay, look, we want to keep people on their toes, and finding the way to do that in which you have the laughs at the right moments, you have the moments of kind of the chills in the right places, and you know, that was the challenge on this one. That was the fun challenge, but it was a challenge.
Well, you say tone. I wrote down fonts and music.
Fonts and music.
The finest fonts of end credits I've seen all year. I'll post the end credits in a minute. There's all sorts of stuff in there. But also, I do want to acknowledge the Blair Mowat score and how you front load it with just this tremendous. Is it Richard Morrison did your credits? God, I met him once. That's a brain that should be donated to science. From what I've worked out.
Morrison and Dean as well.
Well, quite. He says as he drops the book. But can you talk about kind of the way you front load the film? Because you're the first character we actually see, Scott. But by then, I've seen a bit of Edward, Plan 9 from Outer Space, if memory serves. We've got a bit of news reading when we've got these incredible opening credits as well. I just wonder about getting that first 10 minutes right.
So that did change. I mean, there was originally the script had a very different set of opening, and that was a thing that when in the edit we knew immediately. I was like, okay, look, we want to get to the house, and so we had to find a way to establish the world like relatively quickly, so that people felt like they knew where they were placed and where they were going. And so the newsreader, the first thing you see is Sam McCallum. And obviously we've got Scott's character watching that, and obviously knowing the very end scene.
Most films should start.
Yeah, and knowing the end scene, there's a nice mirror going on there. So that was lovely to do, and it talks about social injustice and things, and that's kind of the themes that are underneath all of this fun. And then you've got the newsreader is setting up the world that somebody's gone missing, a young boy. And then you've got Edward, and Edward movie, and it's kind of and that really was to kind of go, okay, look, this is a mirroring going on in terms of like old Hollywood kind of like, you know, we're making a movie for making a movie's sake, you know, for the joy of it, and that's what we were doing. And the title sequence. I always knew I wanted to do that title sequence, and it was always we want to go bombastic with the score. We want to tell everybody what type of movie this is. Yes, we're going to do a title sequence. Yes, the font's going to be big across screen, and set up the yellow knights that are going to be coming. And it was a lot of fun to do. That kind of iconic, playing that in that iconography kind of way. It was really nice. It was really lovely.
I mean, you talk about social injustice as well. I should note out the other thing that I wrote down is you're making a point about NDAs and unpaid internships as well, which I assume was entirely deliberate.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, but it's about money controlling people without money. Yeah, it's the power that you have. If you've got loads of money, you have a lot of power. And I say that obviously now that we've got a billionaire who's just bought Hammer, and
I spotted that.
But it's lovely man, lovely.
That's a new one.
That's really nice.
So Scott, seen this question asked of Eddie, and she's given kind of a perspective on it, but it's your brain I kind of want to go into a little bit, because you've talked a little bit about the trust between the two of you, and you've also trusted almost about the inherent nervousness in acting and exposing yourself. And then you're opposite Eddie. Yeah. Two Eddies, effectively. And I'm just curious how you built that relationship, because a lot of this film is powered by the two of you on screen. What was the off-screen like? What was the prep like? What were the conversations like?
Well, yeah, like the prep. So the whole journey of the film was a bit weird, because the script, it was like tonally, it read very different to what we ended up making, wasn't it? Really, it was like very serious and
evolution.
Quite bleak. And if you've seen like Saint Maud, it had more that vibe.
Thank you for bringing back the ending of that to my head.
I love that.
I just managed to start sleeping
again.
Yeah,
well, can't now. But yeah, no, it gave me that vibe. It was like really tonally bleak, and it didn't really have any humor. Like, it was very dark. Great, but dark. And then the casting kind of like was up in the air for Dr. Jekyll, and then all of a sudden Joe was like, I might have Eddie Izzard, and I was like, that's so different, but this makes so much more sense for Joe.
But the funny thing is that when we were developing it, and there was this darker script that was more serious,
you weren't.
No, I didn't know what I was. I was kind of felt like I was trying to make.
He said, "This isn't quite me," and he said it to me on the phone when we were chatting. You went, "Don't know what it is. This ain't me." And then it fell into place. And then when Eddie got cast, I went, "This makes fucking sense." And then you went, "Yeah." And then the whole thing started coming together. And the humor, and Eddie brings much humor. And when I'm in scenes with Eddie, it's like she keeps you on your toes because she likes improv. I love improv, so I love truly being in the moment and just reacting. So there was that was just, I didn't know what to expect at points. And
we interviewed Eddie for I think 6 minutes to midnight, and one of the things that that she was fairly adamant about is she doesn't do comedy in film.
No,
it's like a very strict rule. That on film it's drama.
Yeah.
And I think people might approach this film expecting Eddie to do the comedic lifting, and actually it's on you.
Oh yeah. Well, I feel like she's quite funny in the end, and I kept giggling.
She's not funny, but she says she doesn't overtly go.
No.
Them come out of the drama.
Totally. Yeah. I feel like mate. Do you know what it was like? When I was looking at my arc of the story, it was like, again, because I was originally working on when I was obviously working on the original script and not knowing where this was going to go.
Yeah.
Before Eddie was cast, I've been working on it and stuff, and I was thinking, this arc is like, I can make this a really like heavy movie just in whatever I do. Like, it's just like, you've got to spend all this time with me if I'm constantly like, do you know what I mean? And I was like, there's certain points where you have to laugh with me there. You have to laugh with me there because you have to get on a journey. So I was like, it's very important. And I'd say to Joe, like, I want this to be a bit where, like, I feel like you have to get the audience to laugh. And it was the same with Chicken. And we'd work out these points together and all this, and it'd be like, they have to get him here, otherwise they won't be on this journey. And for me, it's like, if you can laugh with someone, you can care for them and you can fall in love with them and all that. And I just feel like laughing with someone is such an in. Do you know what I mean?
Does that come from working on stage then?
I haven't really worked on stage.
Sorry?
I haven't really worked on stage. I was only lucky enough to do 2 plays, and they only lasted a week. So
you couldn't really get a feel for an audience response to work from that. That's
honestly, not massively. Only because I'll just be honest about like my career, and because anyone listening, I want them to know, like, or reading, I want them to know, like, anyone can do this. Like, I'm not trained. I have no industry ins, nothing. Same with Joe. And this is just, I don't know, like, comedy. I just knew, like, there's certain bits was like, somehow I have to get people to laugh, and I don't know how. Like, I don't play comedy. Joe just giggles behind the monitor, and I'll go, and he'll look at me and nod, and he'll be smiling, and I'll be like, okay, I think that's cool.
It's always the thing about, I think the thing is that, yes, I'm always looking for, I want people to have various emotions I want it to be an emotional roller coaster. Anything I do, I want that to be, because that's the magic of movies, is that you can feel so many different things, or you can go in not knowing anything about anyone, any character, and find yourself emoting in all these different ways. And that's the magic of cinema to me. So, and yes, it's always been the reason why E.T. makes you cry is because it's made you laugh.
Yeah.
And that's really is it. And I think that's the Spielbergian kind of thing that I love, and that's what I always kind of. So yeah, when finding out that like, okay, this wasn't working, I felt like I was trying to tick the box for the industry, and I was trying to, in a way, I sort of thought, but this isn't feeling right. And then as soon as we found that with Eddie and with you.
Well, the other casting options, honestly, I don't know what this film would have been, because the other casting options...
Well, it's Ryan Gosling, we just discussed.
Yeah, well, you know, with the other casting options with Doctor Jekyll, like, no one was cemented. It was just ideas that Joe was saying to me, and when I was prepping the script, I was prepping it in a very dramatic way. It weren't like this comedy, fun vibe that we ended up with. And I was prepping it in like a kind of like, you know, Fish Tank, you know, like the British film that was, you know, called. I was looking at it like that. And then the casting options he was talking about, I was like, cool, that works for this. And then as soon as it was Eddie, I kind of went, okay, cool. I've done this work, and now let's just shake it off. Do you know what I mean? And like, just see what happens, because I feel like this is it. But it all made sense. And I'm glad it wasn't that, because it'd have been a dreary.
It would have been, no. It's exactly what it should have always been. I'm really pleased that we got to where we got to it.
I'm deliberately being spoiler light, so the closest I'm going to get to the ending is the end credits.
Right.
And some of the special thanks that you put in the end credits. I don't know if you think people don't see these. I
don't know. Not many people do say
Chester
that.
is not an abomination.
Yes, which will make sense when you've seen the film.
Yeah. Cherry Pickers Lionheart events. I didn't know. Did you have Cherry Pickers?
Yes. We did. And but this is the thing, is like on a budget like this, you have to try and find a way to do things, and companies.
Genuinely why I asked the question, because I just think indie films, you find out how they're made, part of it, by the list of special thanks at the end. So
absolutely, and they were a lovely team, because the house, we obviously, as soon as you're upstairs in that house, filming, you've got to get a light up there. And it was on the budget that we had. We didn't have enough money for all the equipment that you'd want. Obviously, if it did, the camera would be a lot more moving around probably, but certain things you just can't be without. Otherwise, it was never going to have the look of the film that I wanted. And so, Cherry Pickers up there. With the lights on.
I like as well that you list the individual locations.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if that's almost you passing the knowledge on to the next person.
Well, it's also a thanks to the locations, because I think that, you know, when you don't have the money, it requires quite a lot from certain locations. It's quite a lot to have a crew come in and kind of mess around and be there for ages and be there till late hours.
Damage your home.
And the people who's they're safely home, I mean, they were so wonderful in that house.
Was it all their pictures as well?
On the wall, all except Eddie. Yeah.
And we slept there.
Yeah, we did.
We slept in the house. I played a Ouija board in there. It didn't work.
Okay.
But Robin couldn't. Robin was scared.
Oh, yeah. So Robin, who plays my ex-girlfriend Maeve, so there's a point where I got upgraded into a bigger room, and so I got in this bigger room, and then she got into my old room, and she was like, she wouldn't sleep in it. And I was like, what are you on about? And she's like, it's haunted. It's something like, oh, whatever. But then I kept going, like, did little girl laughs to make it. And I'd shake her hand as well, trying to wind her up. Yeah.
I mean, I have to ask the question: have you never asked him to direct Jurassic Island 2?
No,
something like that?
I have asked him to direct. I think it was Bambi the Reckoning, which hasn't filmed yet.
Okay.
But no, like, he's too classy for that. But we are working on something together. Because I with my producing and writing, I do write stuff that I put a lot of effort into.
Yes.
And there's something that we're working on that I'm fucking excited about, and he's perfect for it. So that's really cool.
And I mean, we're pretty much out of time, but I just wonder, can you just kind of encapsulate kind of where we are now? Because we are the day after this premiere. You have made a film that, by the sounds of it, changed quite a lot.
Yeah.
As you were doing it, and yet you said at the end there, you're really pleased with how it turned out.
I am.
And no one sits in an interview and says they're really pleased. I love that. That's great.
Well, I'm just really proud of a film that, you know, ultimately didn't have the amount of money. We wanted to make something that ultimately should have had 5 times, 10 times the money that we did have. And so I'm just proud that we're in a place where we've got a film that John Gore and everybody at Hammer feels so confident about and are willing to put their name behind it and relaunch Hammer with. I mean, that's an achievement in itself. And I think whatever happens to it, I hope it finds its audience. But it's an achievement, I think, for a film, like I said in my social media, that for sub 1 million film, to have a Leicester Square premiere, to be sat here doing this, you know, you have to just try and enjoy the moments when you have them, because you never know, I might not get to make another film. The industry might not let me. So I'm just going to try and say I'm pleased and happy to be doing that.
And someone that's self-made. This film was self-made. This is all you from beginning to now. And look, literally Leicester Square, like.
And look at the hotel room we're in.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly. Everything about it is like this was made from his mind in his probably bedroom, and then here we are. Do you know what I mean? It's a huge achievement. Yeah.
Joe Stephenson and Scott Chambers, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And that was my conversation with Joe Stephenson and Scott Chambers, primarily again about Doctor Jekyll, which is in UK cinemas from the day this podcast is being recorded, the 27th of October 2023. You'll be able to find the film playing around the UK. It's well worth seeking out as well. And that really brings to the end this latest special episode of Film Stories. If we've not bored you completely, well, if I've not bored you completely, you can find more from me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Simon Brew. More from us on Facebook at facebook.com/filmstoriesonline. youtube.com/filmstories is where you'll find some of our video stuff. And if you go to store.filmstories.co.uk, that's where you'll find our assorted DVDs, well, Blu-ray, and magazines for sale. If you go to filmstories.co.uk, that's updated every weekday with movie news, reviews, features, mayhem, all sorts of things like that. But I think it's fair to say, as always, I've comfortably outstayed my welcome, so I'm going to bring this special episode to an end. I thank you for listening. I thank you for your time. I will be back soon with your regular episode of Film Stories. Until then, take care, look after yourselves, and bye-bye.